Hello.
Hey, Jess.
Hey, hey.
How are ya?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. We're getting a late start here.
Oh, no worries. I'm actually a little early. It's not quite 7 yet.
Okay. Wait, I have to, hold on.
Okay. Holding.
We have to get our backdrop.
Oh, you're going to do something fancy?
We're going to display our, can you see it?
I cannot see you guys.
How do I make you see us?
There
There I am. Start video.
you
Okay,
go.
look behind me.
Ooh, very
All right.
nice.
Gonna get my stool.
So inspirational. You have your painting clothes on?
I just want to say hi to Sarah and Meredith, and I'm glad that Sarah got the information, so she's on.
Hooray!
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. I'll mute me.
Okay. I'll give it a few more minutes till everybody gets in here and gets us situated. I know Carolyn won't be joining us tonight.
Libby's showing you her pants, Jess.
Oh wait, hold on. Oh wow. Those are very inspirational pants. Very cool stuff.
Paintings in the background. Gonna mute.
So I'm gonna have my screen spotlighted so the video records just my screen. So when I'm going through, if you do need me to pause or look at something, if you could just unmute and let me know so I could switch my screen view so I could see what it is you have a question on. Otherwise, I hope everybody's got their mixing plate, their brushes, water cup, maybe a paper towel, and your long canvas, your long thin canvas.
This is my boy.
Where's my cameras?
I don't know. What did I do with it?
I don't know. Hold on.
Okay, hold on.
What are you missing over there, Gail and Olivia?
We're missing Libby's canvas. I had it just a second
Okay.
ago. I don't know what I did with it, but I'll be right back.
Oh, it's right here.
Oh, we got it.
All right.
Jess, it's Patty. I don't know why you can't see me tonight. I don't know what I did different.
Let's see. I don't know, but I can ask you to start your video.
Not starting, are they?
Perfect.
Ah, there you are. Perfect. Yeah, I thought maybe I could get Craig to paint this one, but he said no.
No, not enough room at the table.
Or maybe it wasn't his favorite Mountain-scape. I don't know.
Oh,
Mm.
Getting the
All
sixth
right.
portion of the night going.
All right. I'm just going to move my easel up a little bit so you guys can see the bottom when I'm working.
What about dinner for you?
All right. How's everybody's view? Great. All right. Is everybody that's here ready to get started? Yes. Good.
Jess, I didn't put my colors out yet. Are we supposed to have
okay.
done that?
Oh yeah, put out your colors.
A little bit of each of them?
Yeah, we're gonna put out a little bit of each. And remember, just want to start with a little bit. You could always add more. And if you do accidentally pour out a lot of paint, you can actually put aluminum foil or saran wrap over it and stick it in the freezer and freeze the paint. And then you could take it out and use it again next time. If you do find yourself with a lot of leftover paint and you want to conserve, you can freeze paint and save it for later.
Hey.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing a little bit of each because we're going to be making almost every color except for brown. I have an old plate, so it's kind of got some mixed colors on there already. But just leave a little space in between so you could do some mixing, or you could always cut another plate in half if you wanted to have a separate mixing plate and you wanted to conserve your paper plate products. So get that paint poured.
Hey Ray.
All right.
A paper towel. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. How are we doing on our paint pouring?
I'm good.
Okay. Olivia, you still pouring out there?
Yeah, I'm almost done.
Okay. I still see some pouring in action, so I'll wait a few more minutes. And then
We're
we'll get
ready.
All right. Excellent. So, to start, how I like to start most paintings, if you were here for the Karn painting, I like to start with a light yellow color to sketch out some of my main areas. It's an easy color to cover over in case I do make a line I don't like later. So we're going to just start with a little bit of white and a little bit less yellow than white, definitely more white than yellow. Make a nice light yellow color. I'm going to make mine a little bit darker so you guys can see it on my canvas. So I'm going to be going almost a full yellow, but we're going to go in with our horizon line first, right? Where our sky is going to meet the water here. And it's not going to be directly in the middle of the canvas. It's going to be a little bit above the middle of the canvas, but we want to make sure we still have room to put in our mountains. So it's about from the bottom of my palm to the top of my pinky is about where I want to put that line. Or if you want to eyeball it, if you go half, go up a little bit from half, and you want to just bring that line all the way across. Don't worry if it's completely straight because we are going to be filling in a lot of vegetation and putting in our mountain range.
Jess, are you using your medium brush?
I am sorry. Yes, I am using my medium brush right now.
Okay.
If you feel more comfortable using the small brush, you can. We're just going to be doing a few marks, so we're not going to be doing too much detail. But after we put in
straight yellow or yellow and white?
yellow and white. I went straight yellow so you guys can see mine. I didn't want it to be too light on the screen.
Okay.
Now, after we have that horizon line in, we're going to start working on our mountain range here. We don't want them to all be equal. We don't want them to all be equal heights, and we don't really want them to be equal shapes. That way they look a little bit more realistic. So when I come up over here, I'm going to start at the edge of the canvas. I'm going to come up, and I'm going to make almost like a little peak and then a little like square kind of plateau and bring that down, not all the way down to my horizon line. I'm leaving a little bit of space because I'm going to come in and I'm going to do an upside down V that's going to start in from that line. It's going to come up and down, and I'm leaving a little bit of space here because I'm going to do a double peak. So a smaller upside down V. That line or that peak of the V is going to kind of line up with the line of my plateau here. So that next triangle is going to just come in and down to the horizon line. Then as we move over, we're going to keep this nice open dip here. That's kind of like where our brightest area is going to be, where the sunrise is happening from, or sunset, whatever you want to imagine. And we're going to come up and we're going to make another small, almost in line with this one, because this is a focal point we're trying to highlight. So we're keeping these peaks almost in line. And I don't have to come all the way down to the horizon line. I'm going to leave some space. We're going to be covering this up with grays, so it'll cover the yellow. But a little yellow peeking through won't be bad because it'll just show the sky reflecting off of our mountains. So as I move over now, I'm going to, at the bottom of that line, I'm going to make a small little peak, a small little wide upside down V. And from that, I'm going to make another low peak, another low V that's going to go off to the side of my canvas.
Oh.
My mountain, my tallest mountain that's going to be back here is almost going to go to the top of my canvas, but it's not going to be all the way to the side of my canvas. I want to leave some space for some sky here. So right above where that peak is, I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to be almost at the top of the canvas. If you make a mistake, like I wasn't paying attention and I went all the way to the top, that's okay. I'm just going to fill that over with some purple, but I'm going to come down, and it's almost meeting up with that same point of where this peak is ending. And then I'm going to come over, and I'm not going to make this an even V down. I'm going to make another little bump that's going to go almost directly in line with that small peak. I'm leaving a little bit of space, come in and make a rounded mountain right above that. So I don't have this necessarily smooth, even line. I have it going up a little bit more as I go over to the side. How are we doing with that?
Good. Jess, can you just zoom in on your right? Those two on the right, it's really hard to see.
These ones?
On the right, so no, the other right. Oh, I see. Okay, a little mountain under another mountain.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. All right, now we're gonna move down below our horizon line and we're gonna put in some of our land patches here, right over on the side and right in, almost in the center there. So we're just gonna be starting right almost in the center where our horizon line is, and we're just almost gonna be drawing like a half circle. I made mine a little wiggly. If you do make it perfect, that's okay too. We're going to be filling that in with some bushes. I just kind of left my outside line a little wavy, just kind of making a little blob almost shape. And now when I come over to the right side, I'm going to start closer to the edge of my canvas, coming out, and then almost going back on an angle, like a diagonal back to that corner. So it's almost like a greater than sign, a wide V. And when I come over to my left side, instead of doing this same shape, we're going to switch it up a little bit. It's going to start a little bit closer on our horizon line, a little closer to the edge. We're going to come out, we're going to come in, and then we're going to bring that line down, almost passing or in line with the edge of our middle island. I'm just bringing that right along the bottom. So it's almost like I have a little bit of a V, sideways V shape, and bringing it around and out across the bottom. Now we're not going to wash our medium brush yet because we have that nice light yellow color that we're going to use to start filling in our sky. So I'm going to start moving on to the sky. If you don't have a lot of that light yellow, that's okay. Just make a little bit more. We don't need too much. We're going to make that a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow mixture. And like I said, we're going to be starting in between those even peaks over here with our yellow, kind of coming across and filling in just to that edge of the plateau. Now you notice I don't have a straight line going across here of where my yellow's stopping. I kind of made it like a little bit higher up over here, a little bit lower over here. That's so when I go in and I blend in my orange, I'm not doing straight streaks of color, and I have a little bit more variation in the sky. Because without washing our brush now, we're going to make an orange. And if you remember from last time, and if you don't, I'm looking for I don't know where it went, my little color wheel. But when we mix yellow with red, we will make orange. And we want to keep it like these soft pastel tones. So since we already have white and yellow mixed together, we're going to just take a drop of red and we're going to mix that in with our yellow. I have a little bit too much red. It's a little too dark. So I'm going to add more yellow until I get like a nice orange kind of coral color.
Jess,
Yeah.
sorry, can you just zoom in on the top part again? Because I think I missed one of the mountain things.
Which side?
Okay, so it's, I think, okay, so two over that side with a small one underneath, right?
Over here, yep. So
Yep.
it's kind of like that square plateau one over here. And then you have your bigger upside down V, and there's a smaller peak underneath that. And if you look up in the top painting, that is this area right over here. So that's that smaller
Okay.
peak, that brighter one. We're gonna add some shadows in there to give it some depth.
Yeah, I missed that little thing underneath, sorry.
No worries, no worries. All right, so now,
Thank
once we have that yellow laid in, we want to get that orange on there so that we can blend before it dries. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put my orange above where my yellow is. So there's a little bit of space because I want to get that orange off my brush. And then when I don't have a lot of orange left, I'm going to start kind of blending over where my yellow is. So because I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, it's easier for me to blend with the yellow without the orange overpowering it. So with my orange, I'm just going to go and kind of hug above that line that I made with the yellow. And I'm going to bring that orange over to the side of the mountain. And notice I'm going in the same direction with my brush strokes. I'm going right to left. Maybe when I come around the mountain here, I kind of outlined this little double peak, which I'll bring a little bit closer. So then I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to make sure that those brush strokes are going out in the same direction. And if you're seeing a lot of marks, like when you go like this and maybe you release and you're leaving a mark with your brush, just try and take your brush and as you stop, brush it away or pull it away from the canvas so you're not left with a lot of brush marks. So I'm just kind of lightly going over. I don't have a lot of paint on my brush at all, but I'm just lightly going back and forth and blending in that orange with my yellow. And my next color is going to be pink. So for my pink, I'm going to wash my brush. And for my pink, I'm going to take white as my base. So I'm going to put my white on there. And I'm just going to use the smallest little baby drop of red and mix a small little circle. Because it's always easier to add more red than it is to add more white. So I'm going to take another little baby drop. See, now I'm getting a little too dark. So it's just kind of playing around. We want that pastel pink. So I'm bringing that color that I made a new mixing spot because I didn't want, if I kept mixing it in here, it's going to get darker and darker. So I just took what was on my brush and mixed it with some white on the side. And I have this nice pastel pink now. Now we're going to be leaving space in our corners, our right and our left corner, kind of on the sides of our taller mountains for the purple. So we're going to go in with the pink and we're going to just start from the top and work our way down and blend in with our orange. Did overlap a little bit over here, brought my pink down a little bit further. You know, I like to usually paint the edges of my canvas so that the picture wraps all the way around. So if you would like to do that, don't forget to paint the top. Just kind of going in here on the edge, bring a little pink over this mountain. And again, it's easier for me to blend down when I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. That gives us a really nice gradient. We don't really know where the pink starts or stops or where the orange starts or stops. Now, when you're ready, if you mix blue in with your pink, you are going to get a nice periwinkle purple color.
Mm.
So we're going to take some of a little drop of blue. Always start with a little bit. You could always add more when you're color mixing. We want that periwinkle purple. And we're going to come in on our sides. I'm going to start on the edge and bring it in. Don't worry too much about covering up those yellow lines. We could cover them up with our grays. But I'm trying to get all of that paint off of my brush, because if I have a lot of paint and I start to blend in over here, sometimes it might get overpowering. So I'm going to bring the rest of my paint on this brush. I didn't add any more. And I'm going to bring it in over here and get rid of a lot of that purple, so that when I go in and overlap on my pink, I get a nice gradual fade. Now that I don't have a lot of paint left over here, do the same thing. I'm just lightly going back and forth and feathering out that color, back and forth, and bring in that purple into my pink. Now I can add a little bit more paint to my brush and bring that rest of that purple in over on the side. Making sure I get the sides of my canvas if I'm painting all the way around. All right, how's everybody doing with their blending? Feeling good? I hope. When I'm blending, I always tend to go from lighter to darker. It's a little bit easier for me to blend those colors out. You know, based on your personal style, you might want to leave a little bit more streaks in the sky based on sunsets or sunrises you've seen. And if you do think that it's still kind of streaky and you're not really happy with it, but you're like, I kind of give up on it, which is okay. We will be going in with some white for the clouds, but we're doing like a faded kind of cloud. But that will also kind of take away maybe any unwanted texture that you have in your sky. Once you've filled in your purple, we are going to wash that medium brush. And we are going to get started on our mountains. Now the trick to the mountains, is everybody ready for me to go to mountains?
Jess, can you pause for a minute?
Yeah,
Yep,
can you pause?
yep,
Please?
yeah.
Thank you.
I can't hear anybody, so I don't know where everybody's at. So just let me know.
How do you suggest blending the purple kind of with the colors?
To make the purple or to blend it with the pink?
No, to blend the purple without it looking too harsh.
Make sure you don't have a lot of purple on your brush. If you need to take off any extra, you could just clean off your brush and make your brush not soaking wet but kind of damp, and that'll reactivate the paint a little bit, and that'll kind of move that paint around, and it'll make it a little bit more watercolor like, which will make it kind of more transparent, which will give you a lighter layer as you blend over. You could try that.
Thank you.
If your orange, if you were blending your purple on top of an orange, maybe it wasn't pink there, it might start to look a little bit of like muddy. I would kind of let that area dry for a little bit, don't overwork it, and then go in with maybe a pink to brighten it up so it doesn't look as much of a brown.
Hey, Jess,
Yeah.
what would you do to fix that, the blending on that?
Hold on, let me switch views. So I would take some yellow and white and start where your yellow and white is and blend the yellow and white up into that.
Okay, thank you.
And that'll get rid of that kind of like orange line that you have there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit smoother. Hey, computer, can you play Fish Radio?
Here's a station for you based on Fish on Amazon Music.
As you're sitting there, if you're done with your sky, feel free to get a good stretch. Feels good to stretch. And guys, just let me know when you're ready for me to start with these mountains.
I think this is the hardest part.
The blending of the sky.
Yeah.
Well, good thing we're getting that over with first.
Yeah. So thanks for giving us time.
Of course.
You said we're going to put white in later?
When we work on our clouds, we are going to be going in. This is the clouds right here. It's a faint kind of white. It'll kind of hide maybe any areas that aren't super, super blended.
Like mine is all black. For some reason. You ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
All right. So for our mountains, if you look up here at our example, kind of the rule of thumb that we want to go by is that we want to kind of have a highlighted part of the mountain and a shadowed part so that they look three-dimensional and that we don't lose those smaller mountain details that we put in here. So we're going to start by layering in some of our darks. We're not going to do it all at once because we do want to do a little bit of blending. So we're going to start over here on the right side with that kind of square mountain. And for our darker value in here, it's not going to be a straight black. It's actually going to be a mixture of black. So when I'm doing black, I'm doing a little tiny baby drop of black because black can be very overpowering. And then I'm going to mix that in with some blue and a drop of white. And that's going to give me this bluish, grayish color. And that's the color that I'm going to go in. Bluish grayish. So it's still a dark gray. It's not very light. It's still very dark, but it's bluish grayish, kind of like a whale kind of color. And we're going to come in right over here on the left corner of our kind of plateaued mountain, this guy right over here. And we're going to layer in some of that darker color. Now you notice that my line on the outside is not a perfectly straight line. I recommend not doing perfectly straight lines. It just makes it look a little bit more realistic and less cartoony. So I kind of just let my brush kind of fall in place. I almost did like a little swirl when I went down with my fingers here, and that gave me that uneven line.
You said blue, black, and white?
Blue, black, and white. So it's going to be more blue, little drop of black, and then you're going to add a little bit of white until you're at this dark grayish blue color.
Thank you.
No problem. So once we've layered in that blue, blackish gray color right over here on the side, we're going to come right over here in between where our small V mountain is and that other yellow line. And we're just going to layer right over that yellow line, layer in a little bit of that blue, blackish gray. And now we're going to just start adding to our brush. We're just going to start adding some white to our brush. I added the white. I didn't mix a new color. I just added the white to my brush because then I'm going to come in over here and I'm going to just kind of overlap where that bluish blackish gray was. I don't want to blend all the way. I still want to have a darker value at the bottom. And then it's just getting a little bit lighter as I'm coming up and I'm covering that yellow line that was there. I'm not going all the way to the middle of the peak. I'm just coming over and blending out some of that shadow that we're creating. Now I'm going to add more white to my brush. Like I'm almost covering my whole brush in white. I still have those darker colors underneath, and that's going to help us as we're blending on the canvas. I'm going to come in with that white, and I'm going to come right to the top of that plateau, and I'm making sure that I'm getting right to the edge. I'm covering those yellow lines and meeting up with my skyline. I want to leave this kind of harsh outline that I've created over here, and I'm just going to come in with that lighter gray and fill in to the bottom of that line. I added some more white to my brush because I ran out of the paint, and I'm just coming and filling. I'm doing short little strokes, and by doing these short little strokes, I'm leaving some of the colors that were mixed on my canvas while I had the darker underneath and the lighter on top, and leaving those pockets of colors with those harsher outlines, which is different from what we did back here. I mean, back here in the sky with blending, we want to leave some of those kind of harsh lines for those sharper contrasts that we would see in a mountain because of the gullies and trails and peaks and valleys and all that stuff that we would see in mountains. So we do want to leave some kind of harsh outlines. We don't want to over blend our mountains. We want to leave those pockets of dark gray and light gray. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to add any more white. I'm going to go back to that darker color. But since there's white on my brush, when I mix in with my darker color, I started creating this new color. How awesome. With that new color, I'm going to come in and I'm going to come right up along the top here and bring it down, bringing it downtown. So I'm just kind of outlining, going right over that yellow line that I had there with that darker blue. And if I want to wrap it around to the side of my canvas, I can. Now I'm going to go for a double dip here. I'm first going to dip it in some blue, and then I'm going to dip it in some white. So blue and white on my brush at the same time. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to start filling in this area. If it's getting a little too dark, which it is right here, I'm going to add some more white. When I add my white to make my white last, I always grab from the outer edge of the white. So that way I still have that nice clean pocket of white to work with. And then I'm just going to go and fill in the rest of my mountain with that lighter color. I'm not too concerned about over here on the edge because if you look up here, we do have a tree that's going to be covering part of that mountain. So again, just leaving those kind of harsher lines of color so that we have that contrast on the highlighted side and the darker side of the mountain. So since I already have a lighter gray on my brush, if it's looking a little bit more like a lighter blue, I just want you to rub off some of that extra paint either on your plate or on your newspaper and add some fresh white to your brush. I do have a good healthy dollop on there because I want it to stay rather white as I move down now to my little mountain. And that little mountain is this little guy right here, which is going to be lighter. Now just because I added white, I still have that blue or that gray underneath. So I get a nice variation of color just from what is left on my brush.
Are you coloring in that whole mountain?
I'm coloring in that whole mountain. And now what I want you to do is I want you to take a scoop of white, put it on the side of your plate, and a little drop of your black. And we're going to make a light gray. Now, if you still have a lot of blue left on your brush, I wiped most of mine off. So now I'm just left with this nice light gray. Might have a little blue tint to it, but that's okay. But we just want to start varying our colors a little bit by using lots of different variations of gray and that blue gray. That's going to give us lots of nice contrast in our mountains. So now I'm left over here where I stopped before I got to the edge of this peak. So you notice that my peaks, they weren't totally in line. And if you had the top of your peak right above the small peak, you're just going to move that over a little bit. And we're going to take this light gray and we're going to start at the tip. And we're going to just do some small strokes going on an angle and down, just like that. Now, I didn't come all the way to the edge of my smaller mountain. There's a little bit of space there because I want to add a darker shadow as I get down towards the bottom of this valley. So to make my darker gray, I'm going to just take a little drop of black on my brush that has the light gray already. And I'm going to come start at the bottom here and work that gray up. And I'm coming all the way up to the top of the peak. I got a little bit of blue on my brush in that last sweep, and That's okay, just kind of like it. Now that I'm mixing and I have all these different grays and blues, it's okay if they kind of like all intermix with one another. I'm gonna bring a little bit more highlight back to this area. So put a little bit more white on my brush. Just added some short little lines going down. Now on my next mountain, my mountain in between my sunrise here, I want to keep my highlight going on this right side for most of my mountains as I'm moving across here. So I'm going to wipe off any extra gray that I might have. If I have a lot, I'm just wiping it on the side of my plate so that I have a little extra gray stash if I need to get to it. And I'm going to take my white and I'm going to go in and I'm going to go right along the side of this mountain. Kind of really just don't like this straight line that I left here, but I'm going to just go in and kind of curve that a little bit and give that mountain over here some nice bright white. It's not going to be completely white, and we don't want it to be completely white because then it's going to look like blank canvas. So it's just a very light hue of that color that we were using before. So I'm just going in on the one side, the right side of my mountain with that lighter white color. Then I'm going to grab some of that darker gray that I had and fill in that side. If you need to make a little bit more, you can make it on the canvas, just like we've been doing, where we've been taking like a little drop of black and a little drop of blue, adding it onto our brush, and then blending on our canvas. If you think it's too dark, go in and add some lighter color right on top and blend that out. And if you are in your own mountain flow right now and you're like, man, I'm just loving these mountains, I got my own thing going, that's great. Just go with the flow. Try and remember to have variation in your grays and also to go light on one side and a little bit darker on the other side. So we get those peaks catching the light. So I'm going to move over here to my top round mountain. I'm going to add in some of that lighter white blue color right on the edge. And then a little bit of that darker color towards the bottom. So it's starting a little bit lighter on the top, and my shadows are always coming in towards the bottom or on that other half of the mountain. Computer, next song. It's a terrible song. Got Paul Simon radio on and it's playing Kid Rock. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm just filling in, trying not to over blend my mountains. So I'm keeping that light coming on one side, a little bit of the dark coming in on the other half. Now as you're layering it, if your paint's really thick, it might absorb whatever layer you're trying to put on. You can always go back and add in some highlight to that area if you need. My little mountain down here, I want him to be kind of bright. So I'm going to use more white. Keep him nice and bright in here. That bright highlight up against this darker shadow down here. Going in with a darker gray blue. And when I make my shadows, sometimes I'm just taking, again, just that little drop of black and mixing it in right then and there. I'm really trying to make sure that I'm covering over any of the yellow line. Don't worry about your horizon line, but any yellow lines that we had in here for our mountains, I'm gonna make sure we're covering that up with our grays and blue grays and gray bluish grays. And if you really like the Blue Mountain Majesty look, you could add a little bit more blue in certain peaks. I think I've lost a little bit of my blue. I'm going to bring some of that blue back, right it over here. So I'm just kind of layering in a jagged and a blue divider line in there. And then I'm going to go in some of that lighter white color. If you feel like it's really hard for you to get that lighter color, you can always go in and rinse your brush and start fresh if you're having trouble getting to those different colors. They're all starting to look the same. Wash your brush. So taking some of that white, adding that in right there. Keeping some nice jagged lines. Just want to be able to tell where our mountain ranges are. So over here, got me darker. That's a little too dark, so I'm just going to add some white and blend that dark gray. Don't want to lose that nice blue that I made in there. Just leave it like that. Now, as we come up to this top mountain here, I'm going to start with my darker gray color, so that black and white, a little bit of blue. And I'm going to start at the taller peak, that top peak here, and I'm just going to make a line that's going down like this. It's coming kind of down on an angle and then out towards the side, giving that darker shadow at the mountain that's further, and the mountain in front is still a little lighter. I'm also going to come in over here with that darker color and get in that corner. So now I can see that right here is a little valley in there, and that's going to help pop out these front mountains. Hey computer, play Paul Simon Radio. Sorry about that. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush, and I'm going to keep this side a darker gray, making sure I'm covering up any of those yellow lines. But this darker gray, we don't want it to be as dark as that middle line that we made. So I want to make sure I can still see that middle line. Going to add some more white to my brush and add a little bit of white right on top, in between where that darker gray and my darkest black gray is. And sometimes too, when you're working really close to something, you might be like, oh gosh, that looks so weird. But if you take a step back from it, putting all these harsh contrasts in actually is really helpful to make it look very realistic. This is almost more of a impressionistic type of painting, where if we look very close, it might not look like a lot of shading, but when you step back from it, it looks glorious. So we're going to get some of that blue grayish mixture I had, layer in some of that right here, and Put that bluish gray right down here so that my front mountain is popping out because I have a darker color behind it. So all this area in here, I am going to be going in with some white. So if you need to wipe off any extra paint or wash your brush, you want to go in and add that white right in there. We don't want to leave any blank canvas, even though we know the canvas is white. You still want to paint over it. You probably have some yellow lines sticking out somewhere. So we just want to cover those up. And try and keep some of those harsher contrasts in there. And after you take a step back from your painting and you decide, wow, that looks so good. I don't know what I'm doing now. I'm just kind of going in and futzing around. If you feel like you need to add some brights somewhere or some darks somewhere, now is the time to do it before we go in and start building up to the front with the trees covering those mountains. After we're done with our mountains, we are going to be moving down to our water and putting in a water layer. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to finish up your mountains. If anybody has any questions or if they would like me to look at anything, I would love to. And sometimes you're just playing around and you put in lines that you don't really like and you can just paint over them. And I think I'm pretty happy with my mountains. And I'll wait for everybody to give me the signal and we can move on to our water. I'm going to move this closer for you guys. Do your best to match your colors, or feel free to go rogue and just kind of make them however you'd like as well. You want to make them more purple Mountain Majesty. Make some brown mountains. Whatever you'd like. Hey computer, play Fish Radio.
Here's a Amazon music.
You know, like the more obscure the edges of your lines are, that you have that dark and that light paired up, kind of gives it more of that realistic mountain feel. So don't think that your lines need to be perfectly straight, kind of more obscure, the better. So maybe those of you who are done with your mountains, we're gonna be switching to our big brush to fill in all of our water. So make sure you put your medium brush in the water or wash it. Put it to the side. You can let it live in the water container for now. But we're gonna use our big brush. Would it be okay for those of you still working on mountains for me to just show the color? We're just going to be putting one color in here, and all of these shadows and highlights is going to be something we do later.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. So for my water here, for my lake or lagoon, whatever we may have here, we are going to be taking our blue and we're going to be mixing it with some white, not too much white. We don't want a sky blue. So I'm going to make the base of my mix the blue. So I'm going to take my blue and then I'm just going to take a little scoop of white. And when I'm mixing, I'm always mixing small circles. I don't want to mix the whole plate because that'll make the paint dry out quicker. So I just want a lighter shade of that blue, but again, not too light. I don't want it to be like a sky blue. So I just added a little bit of white to that blue, and I'm going to start going in back and forth. And I'm just using the tip of this brush. I'm not using the side width of this. I'm just using the very tip, and I'm keeping my strokes going back and forth, right to left, right to left. Now you see it's starting to overlap that yellow outline that I made here, which is totally fine because we are going to be covering that with our greens. And we don't want it to be such a defined edge anyway because the water and the movement. So I'm just going to come up to here. I can leave a little bit of my yellow line showing back here because I'm going to be doing my tree line back there. So I'm just going to be going in. So try to avoid doing this, like try not to do this outline. If you do, then just make sure that you're going back and forth over that outline so that we're getting this nice built-in texture in the water. By us going back and forth, we're starting to get that kind of line movement in there. Like in the sky when we were blending, we were trying to avoid seeing those brush strokes, but really it works out nicely for our water that if we go back and forth, we might be able to see a little bit of those strokes being left And that just helps with our texture of the water, with our little bit of movement that we're trying to show. So again, if you run out of that color, I always mix on top of that color so I know if it's too light or too dark until I get it just perfect. And keep filling in. I'm not pressing hard when I'm just using the tip of this brush. I'm pressing very lightly, and that's giving me like a very nice kind of stroke. Now I could go in and I could press hard and I could cover this very quickly and then go back and do these kind of line strokes very, very softly in there. And it's going to pull up a little bit of that paint, but you see, it almost looks like now I have this lighter blue and darker blue on there, and I didn't even have to change colors. So I'm just going to keep that going around. It's okay if it overlaps that yellow line a little bit. I'm going to do about half of mine just in case anybody is still catching up and they want to see me redo this. I'm just going back and forth, and trying to keep in a little bit of that texture with the tip of the brush.
Rebecca got coronavirus.
So what?
We just got news that my niece Livy's cousin has coronavirus.
Oh, sorry.
He was just saying. Livy was just asking. I wonder where she got it.
Well, one of my adult pottery students came to pick up their pottery today from a good distance away. And her friend works in Washington, and she has been assigned the job of talking to the families that have lost people from COVID and like kind of investigating who they came in contact with, who like areas that they've been to, and that is her job. So she cries all day, and her uncle just passed away from it. And she's just saying that she really hopes that he doesn't come up as one of her cases.
Oh.
And I was just thinking like, wow, that's like the worst job to have right now.
Yeah, said that again.
Sad. Are you guys on the water yet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you need me to show you what I was doing, or were you able to pay attention or follow along with that?
We were. How about
Okay.
other people? Sarah and Meredith. Patty.
Anybody else?
I'm on the water too.
Okay, great. So just, going back and forth, kind of lifting my brush away from the canvas so that my brush stroke lines aren't like that. They don't stop abruptly. They just have that nice little fade out. And like I said, if you need to go a little shorter when you come over here and you're overlapping your yellow line, don't worry. The yellow line is still going to show through a little bit because it's going to make that green. And that's going to give you your border line from when we lay in our shrubs.
Can you start turning that off? It's actually on. Yeah. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Jess, if you kind of lost your wispy lines, how did you say you could put them back in? Just do a little contrast, or?
If you lost your wispy lines, you can use just the tip of your brush. You could add a little drop of water, wipe off the extra water, and go in right on top of your paint, and it's going to kind of like take off a layer, and it's just going to give you like a lighter blue underneath. But these harsher lines, like you see in here, like this is a yellow line. These are purples. These lines we're going to be going in with after our blue dries, but this just gives us a little extra texture underneath by just using the tip of the brush and lightly going back and forth. So we get those movement lines.
Thank you.
No problem.
When did I go to see them?
What?
January. I like my water.
I like your water.
It's the only thing I don't hate.
I like your water too.
We're on mute now, so you can't hear positive reinforcement.
Doing a great job. Everybody's doing a great job. When we are done with our water, though, we are going to be putting our big brush in our water container to either hang out and live there, or you can rinse it and put it to the side. We're going to be going back to our medium brush. We're going to start laying. We're going to just pretend we're a landscaper for a minute here. We're going to start laying out our trees and our shrubs and start putting in some layers of color. That's going to give us a little bit more time for our mountains and our sky to dry before we go back up there and add in our clouds, because we want to put in our clouds before we put our trees in, because those are going to be extending past our mountains, because that's showing us this atmospheric perspective, right, of the mountains way in the distance, because obviously a tree wouldn't be as tall as a mountain, but that gives us more perspective. So when we're done with our water, we're going to be going in and making green, one of my favorite colors, and that is going to be blue and yellow. So when we take our blue and our yellow, we are going to get a beautiful green color. So I just took a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue. If I use more yellow than blue, I'm going to get a really light green. If I use more blue than yellow, I'm going to get a very kind of turquoisey green. I'm looking for more of a standard kind of grass green right here. So I want to try and use equal parts of each color to get that green. What I'm going to do with my green is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to put in some trunks or some bones of where my trees, my tallest trees, are going to be. And then we're going to start layering in some of our shrubs here, but leaving some empty space for when we go in and do our pink, because we don't want to blend that green, the pink on top of the green, because it's going to get very muddy. So is everybody ready to put in our trees?
Can I see your green again?
Sure. So it's kind of like a Kelly green, if you will.
Yeah, mine keeps turning kind of bluish green, and I keep adding.
So if you have a really dark green and you just try and keep adding yellow to it, it's going to be harder to get it lighter. So just make a new pile, make a new spot to mix. You could take some of that dark green that you've mixed and then add yellow just to a little bit of that darker green.
Oh yeah, that's better.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start over here on our right side, putting in some tree placement. So we're going to start right over here in this corner. And if you see, our trees are kind of going up on an angle, right? Kind of opposite of our angle that we created down here. We have this angle going this way. So now our tree heights are going to be going kind of up and following almost this top angle. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start right up here, not exactly in the corner because I want to leave space for all my other trees, but right about here. So I'm leaving the point of that for some shrubs, and I'm just going to put in a little tiny line right like that. It's coming just past my horizon line. And my next tree is going to come right next to it. It's going to go up a little bit beyond that line. And my last tree line is going to start kind of right on the edge of my canvas. It's going to come down lower than these lines, but it's going to come up higher into the sky, right on the edge of the canvas. Don't worry about them being straight or anything because we are going to be going in and making our pine trees over those, so it's okay if they have a little wiggle to them. We're going to come now over to our left side, and on our left side we're just going to have two trees. Now these trees are going kind of in the opposite angle that we have over here. And this is just making it so it's not too symmetrical, right? We don't want it to be exactly the same on both sides. We already have this guy in the center, but we kind of throw it off by having a cluster of trees here. Because to make it look more realistic, we don't want to have exactly what we have on this side. Only in our reflection are we going to keep that very consistent. So I'm going to make my tree over here taller, coming into the negative space that I left on the side. So I'm going to start right about here and bring it down. And that next line is going to start close to the edge, come down a little bit further. So I have like this angle here, that angle over there. Now with that beautiful green that we made, I'm going to just start doing some dabbing, right? Like what we did with our Karn painting, where we went in and we were doing some stippleism or some blotting or some dabbing, where we're doing little dots to give it more texture. And we're going to just start layering in some green right underneath my trees here, kind of like right before I get to the smallest crease or the smallest pocket right here. I'm going to leave this space open for my pink. So I'm just going to put in some green all in here, wrapping it around the side of my canvas. I'm going to leave that space open, and then I'm going to come in with my green over here and just start layering in some green. This bottom space in the corner of my canvas, the corner of my left side of the canvas, I'm going to leave open for a little bit of pink. And I'm going to kind of come down and break up that big space. You can see I broke it up just a little bit over here. Broke up that big space. And I'm going to add some more green down here, starting at the top, bringing it down. And just another little space and green to finish it off. And we're just layering in our first layer of green. There's several different shades of green in here to make our shrubbery look more realistic. But we're going to go and layer that in everywhere. And then we're going to come in and work on these clouds. I'm coming back over to my right side. I'm starting to layer in. I don't need to layer in between the trees because our tree is going to take up or cover the bulk of that area. If you need to make some more green, make some more green on that same spot. Keep your green kind of consistent. So I'm coming in and doing a layer below my trees. I'm coming all the way to the edge where it's meeting the lake. I'm going to leave a little pocket here. Another little pocket of pink right here. And my bottom pocket is going to be pink. If you'd like to put in more pink or less pink, that is totally cool. Whatever you're feeling, you could always go over. Your pink might just be a little bit darker when you're covering up the green, but you could always go in and add more if you feel like you need to at the end. I'm just painting on the side of that canvas to keep my texture. And I've decided I'm going to switch it up and we're going to do our clouds last, because that's what I actually did when I was painting this. I did my clouds last, and it wasn't a big deal going around this one little tree because that's where it's fading. So forget what I said about going up into the sky. We're working on our shrubs now, and that's the way it's going to be. All right, so we want to come into our middle section here, a little middle island. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in my tallest tree in the background here. It's not exactly going to cover that point. So if you can use this point as a reference, your tree is going to come just to the left of that tree, not too far above it, right about like that. And then my tree next to it's going to come kind of right in that little dip. Tip will come right to there. Moving over to our third tree, that's going to really kind of cover this little valley that we had here, which we might not have fully blended. And we're going to just come up with that tree. It's almost as tall as the tree I have over here, slightly taller. Again, trying to keep everything a little bit asymmetrical here. So now I'm going to come in, I'm going to add some green on the edge of this little island. I'm going to add some here right in the middle. You see here like some random greens that are not necessarily clustered. And that's totally okay. That's going to just give it a little bit more depth, so you can have some kind of random polka dots or random blobs going over there. And I think I am happy with my blobbage. Don't worry if you have any white spaces in between, because we are going to be layering in these colors. So not to worry about that. All right, so we're going to give that a chance to dry so that when we layer our next round of colors, they don't completely blend and we don't lose these different values of green. And we're going to switch over to our small brush. So we're going to get that nice thin brush out. And we're going to start in our sky, our tree line, our horizon line right here. We're going to get rid of this yellow. That way we're going to start kind of working our way down the canvas here. Give everybody a second to get those blobs finished. Get your small brush out. And we're going to be making this green into a darker green, more like a kind of like a hunter green for our sky tree line back here. So if you have green left, you are welcome to use that green. If you need to make a little bit more green, grab some red and blue, make that nice green color. And we're just going to add a drop of black into that color. And if it's not that dark, we're going to add a little drop more. Remember, we don't want to add too much too quick, because black can definitely overpower. But we want to get a nice dark hunter green. And that dark hunter green that I've just created, by making green first and then adding black to it. Sometimes if I tried to make this color, but I just mix black and yellow and blue together, I might get more of like a grayish color. So you need to have that base color to mix before you go and mix them all together. So I'm going to take that hunter green and I'm going to go right along my horizon line. if you're working with your canvas propped up, use your pinky to kind of help balance your hand, to keep your hand steady as you're going across. But I'm making sure that my yellow line is covered. Doesn't mean that this line needs to be perfectly straight at the bottom, because we are going to be coming in and putting our reflection of those trees. So I'm just going to start on one side. So I'm starting on my left side, and I'm going to work over to the right side because the left side's closer to me right now. But I'm just going to, from that hunter green line that I made, I'm just going to start at that line, and I'm going to slowly go up. I'm just going up. I'm not leaving really space in between, but I'm also making some of them taller and some of them shorter. I don't want them all to be the same height. As I'm pulling my brush away, I'm coming closer, guys, don't worry. As I'm pulling my brush away from the canvas, that's giving me these nice kind of faded thin lines here. So this tree line is way far in the distance because it's right by the mountain, so it's very small, so we're not going to see all the details that we're going to see in our other trees. Start at that line and just go up, making some taller and some shorter, some taller, some shorter. Now if you see, as I get over here, if I keep a lot of space in between, it just looks like lines. It doesn't look as much as a tree line. So try and fill in that space as best you can. And if you're ready, we're going to move over to the other side with that. You can always add just a drop of water to like reactivate your paint if it's starting to get a little dry. If we had too much water, it's going to get really thin, and then you're not going to be able to cover up any other colors. So I put my horizon line in with my darker hunter green, and then starting at that line, I'm just going up, making some shorter, some taller, and really filling in that space. Trying not to leave too many gaps. A couple gaps is okay, you know, maybe there's a little bit of space in between some trees, but we'd really want to not keep them like that, because that's not going to give us that tree illusion that we're going for. So start at the bottom, taller, shorter. If you really want to get fancy, you can make some thicker and some thinner. Or just something like that right across your entire horizon line. What is this news? Hey computer, play Gorilla's radio. All right, so once I've gone in, and let me know if I'm going too fast, but I was just going to add a little bit of yellow to the color that I had made. Make a little bit of a lighter version of that army green. And if you don't see a difference, just add in some more yellow. Darker colors tend to overpower lighter colors. And with that lighter army green version color, I'm simply going to come and do some short lines coming down from my horizon line. I might have a little bit more space in between them because this shadow is really just catching the tip. And if you overlapped on that dark line, I'm just going, I'm blending those colors in. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly, I'm not adding any more paint to my brush, but lightly, just with the tip of that, I'm going to try and go a little bit back and forth and kind of make some movement lines, like with my water lines. So just very lightly, might have like one or two going back and forth like that. If you look at my example up at the top, see some, I have some more spaces in between, just a little bit more filled in. Up to you how you pick to do it. But when you do it to one side, make sure you go in and do it to your other side. So always start at that horizon line. And if you're paying attention and you look and you're like, oh, I have a really tall one here, that line should be a little bit taller down here, right? So try and follow the lines that you created to be your guide in how your reflection will look underneath. Remember, you can take a little bit of water, wipe off any extra, but that'll help glide that paint a little bit smoother onto your canvas. And then I could go and do one of these. That's just kind of softening and moving that around just a smidge. Now we're going to stay with our small brush as we move towards our middle island here. And we go in and do our trees and our more fine-tuned shadows right in there. So if you've run out of that army green color, I'm mixing a new batch of that army green while I wait for everybody to get those tree lines in. So again, that was making green first and adding a little bit of black to that green. So I got that nice, deep hunter green color. Let's just see how everybody's doing. Are we feeling good about our tree lines? Great. So I'm going to just start with my trees on that back island. Since they are a little further in the distance, they are a little bit darker. You can see over here on the right side, my tree and my shrubs get a little bit lighter. But for my pine tree, I'm simply going to go in because I'm going to be layering. I'm simply going to be starting at the top. And I'm going to do tiny little back and forth. I'm just doing like a little zigzag, like a very like standard Christmas tree zigzag. I'm just going back and forth and layering in this darker green color, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So as I get to the bottom of my tree, my lines were getting wider as I get towards the bottom. We're going to be layering in with some darker black and some lighter green to show the texture of those trees. But just like we did over here, we want to layer in our base first. So I'm just doing small little zigzag back and forth lines, nice little thin lines starting at the top of the tree, keeping the top of the tree somewhat of a point, and back and forth and getting wider as I get to the bottom. So I do that to all 3 trees on my island. Maybe you decide one tree, you want it to be a little bit fatter, you want it to be a little bit more unsymmetrical. These are your trees, you know, how you'd like. Just go in and fill those in. If you filled in those trees, and we can always add a little bit of water, not too much water, because that's going to make your painting drippy. If you had a little bit of water, that'll help kind of glide that paint on a little bit faster. And you can see it's a little bit more transparent. That's okay, because we're going to be layering on top of it. So like I said, our green, our trees over here, they're going to get a little lighter as they come towards the front, but we're still going to layer in this dark color on our side trees. So you can start on the right side if you like, or start on the left. But we're just going to come in and we're going to do our little zigzag pattern all the way to the bottom. For the trunks or the bones that we've created, go in over here. I want to make sure that my tree, like, it's covering that yellow horizon line that I had left over there. It's covering out any of that space with my darker. I'm going to leave this one. I'm going to put a lighter base over on this tree. That's all the way on the side. So I'm going to bring that darker over to the left side. And maybe if you want to, you know, experiment and you want to see what it would be like if you started at the bottom, wider, and then you got smaller as you went up. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to kind of judge. So that's why I tend to start at the top. But whatever you're more comfortable with, feel free to do it however you would like. Start at the top here. And I'm just going to do my little back and forth. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be completely symmetrical on either side either. But I'm going to go in and do that same thing over here, which is really going off the side of my canvas. And you can decide whether you'd like to have your smaller tree in front or behind the bigger tree. Now to make this army green lighter, I'm going to grab some yellow and add yellow to my mixture. With that lighter army green, I'm going to go and do the last bone of this tree here. Filling in all the rest of that white space. And bringing it around the side of my canvas. And now once I've added that in, since I used my small brush and we were doing pretty quick back and forth strokes, we do want, even though we layered in all of our trees, we do want it to be somewhat wet to do a little blending with this. So we're going to go in and we're going to do our dark and then we're going to do our light. So I'm going to still use my small brush. I'm going to use that green that I have on there, but I'm just going to do a little drop of pure black, straight up black on that brush. And I'm going to zoom us on in. Haha, zoom, zoom, zoom. Right over here. And when I go in with the black, I'm really going to just kind of be doing that blotting, that dabbing that I did. But I'm going to do it almost in layers or in rows. So I'm going to do some darks in some rows going across. Not completely across. See, I'm leaving some negative space or some gaps in those spaces right there. And that's starting to kind of show us that low light in the tree, those negative spaces in the pine tree. Whereas the branches that are sticking out are going to be catching more light. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do that to all of these trees, kind of leaving some space and not making them exact, like I'm not trying to make a dotted line going all the way across it. I would connect the dots. I'm trying to keep it or maybe it's like a little bit darker and then I didn't put as much and I'm leaving a gap so that I'm kind of picking up some of that original green that I put there. Does that make sense to everybody?
Jess, are you using just black now?
Yeah, just black on my small brush.
Okay.
So I'm going to layer in some little kind of, I'm leaving a gap in between, right? I'm not doing a full row across, and I'm leaving a little bit of space in between those blacks for when I go in and put my lighter green. As I move over to the side, I do the same thing, but I'm not going to do it as much. I'm going to leave a little bit more of that space in between because it's definitely going to be a little bit wet over on this side still, which is going to blend in with that black. So the black is not going to be as stark or as intense as it is in your middle island. So I'm just going in and adding a little bit on my right side. I'm going to do the same thing on the left side, which is definitely going to be wet. Layering in at the bottom, dabby dab dab. Just a little bit of black, not too much black. Blend that black from one side to the other, creating a little bit of shadow in your trees. I want to wash that black off my brush. So I have a nice clean brush. And we're going to go in and make a lighter green. So I'm really going to take those army green. Hopefully you have a little bit of that left. And you're going to take a little bit of white and add that to your army green. Almost like you got like a sage kind of color going on now. Because we added a little bit of white to that green mixture. And I'm going to go in between where my black is, and I'm going to add some splots of my lighter green. I don't want it to go and cover all of that first green layer that I put in. I want to make sure that I am leaving some of that original green, and then I have the dark black and now that lighter green. So I have these 3 different green values on my trees. We're just going to give it some more dimension and realistic flair. Now, if your green maybe is a little different, you think you need to add a little bit more yellow, you be the own mix master of your painting. Mix as much or as little as you would like. Go in and add those highlights to your other side trees. If you think it's a little too light, you could always add a little bit of dark green over that. And add in any dark green for this, but it's okay. Just want to get these guys on the side done first. Little bits of color here and there. Just to break up that really bold, solid color. We don't want it to be too solid because then it's going to look not as realistic. So for that last tree, that was a little bit lighter, add a little bit more yellow to that mixture, so I really can get a nice bright color in there. right, friends, we're doing great. How's everybody feeling out there? Good, I hope. So after we've added in all of the light areas of our trees, which I'm going to give you some time to finish, we're going to be moving on to back to our medium brush, and we're going to add in our other layers of greens as well as our pinks. Then we just need to add in some of our reflective light and our clouds, and we're almost done. So now that you guys have had a lot of practice with kind of layering up these colors for your trees, I'm going to go in and start adding in some layers of colors over my shrubs. So I'm going to be adding in some of my highlights and some of my lowlights. I think I'm going to switch back to my small brush for those lowlights to get those reflections in the water. So right now with my medium brush, I'm going to use that for putting in my highlights, because this green is really our middle tone. So I want to add in some of those lighter greens in there. So I'm going to, I could use the lighter green that I just made for my trees, if that is lighter than the green that you had in your bushes. You might need a little bit more yellow or a little bit more white, kind of play around with it. You could always hold it up to your canvas and kind of judge to see if it's lighter or darker. And I'm just going to start kind of going in and layering in some of those lighter shades of my green, breaking up any solid color space that I had here. So you can see I'm just very quickly kind of going in and layering that on top of my other colors. I might even put it a little bit in that white space that I left for my pink, because I can even take a little bit of green to mix in with those pinks to give us those undertones in there. So just using all the paint I got left on my brush, layering it right on top of those greens. And while I still have my medium brush out, I'm gonna layer in my pinks. So when I come in for my reflection, I know where my reflection is going to be for each of my colors. So with my medium brush still, I'm either reactivating or reinventing a pink, nice light pink. And if I don't mix it all the way in my brush, see how it's lighter on the top, a little bit darker towards the bottom of my brush. When I go and press all the way down with my brush, I get this cool light dark texture without having to add in highlights and lowlights. So I just don't want to overblend. And what I mean by overblend is I don't want to dab on top of these too much, because then I'm going to lose that low and highlight that I've created here by just adding those colors on my brush, kind of overlapping a little bit where my green is, so that looks a little bit more realistic. So again, I made a pink. I might add a little bit more white at the tip of my brush so that the pink is at the bottom. And when I press down all the way, I get this cool, almost like a flower bud looking, where it's darker at the base and a little lighter on the top, depending on where I have the color on my brush. So dab, dab, dab pink into all those empty white spaces that you have left in your shrubbery. And if you look and you're like, man, you know, I did all that dabbing, but it's just looks like this big blob of one shade of pink, let that area dry for a little bit, move to your next area, and then come back and then add some light on top of it. Because if you just try and keep going, if the paint's too wet, it's just gonna blend into that one color. We want to get a little variation where we have a little bit of light or a little bit of dark on there. So try and just move on to another section and come back to it. So I'm using the top of my brush. I'm using the side of my brush. When I use the side of my brush, I have like a little bit of dark pink left at the bottom there. Whoops. And that's going to help me get the different shades that we were just talking about, right? So I'm just using the side of my brush, overlapping into some of that green, having some of the green popping through. That looks fabulous. Bring some of those nice pinks out and down. Now, if you think it looks too light, you could always go in. Just make sure that you don't go in with just a red. Try and blend that before you go on top, because we don't want it to look too out of place. So now while I have that pink on my brush, I'm going to wipe off any extra paint that I have so that it's not really, really heavy with paint, because I'm going to go in, and now that I have that pink, I'm going to layer in back and forth strokes my pink reflection. I'm leaving a little bit of space in between where my bush stops and my reflection starts, so I can go in with a little bit more of a shadow line. So I'm just going in with that pink that's on my brush. Not too much paint. Why not too much paint? I kind of want some of the blue to be shining through. So you can wipe off some extra paint on your plate or on your newsprint, whatever you're working on. So we get a nice light coat of that pink. We don't want it to be too opaque. And what I mean by opaque is not see-through. We want it to have some transparency, so we see a little bit of that watercolor coming through. So anywhere that there's pink, I want you to go and try and copy that shape, but copying the shape in a back and forth to follow the directions of the water lines that we made before, because the reflection is now waving in the water lines. It's not going to be the same exact shape because it's got a little movement to it. So we're just adding in a little bit of that color right here. And if you're like, I put too much paint on it, it's really dark, take a little bit of water right away, add a little bit of water, and that's going to lift up some of that paint so it won't be as dark or as opaque. When you come down over here, these are in the front, right? The water is behind, because this is the front, the most forward thing in our painting. We're not going to see the reflections of behind it. We're only seeing the reflections on the side and front reflections, because all the light is coming from the back. So we're not going to be making reflections down over here, just in our bushes on the right side, in the center, as well as this little bush right here in the cove, right there. So once we added in that pink, we can wash our brush. Let's have our brush nice and clean, because we're going to use that for the clouds. But before we go to the clouds, we're just going to put in our tree shadows and a little bit more of our reflective light down here. So I have my thin brush, And with my thin brush, I'm gonna go in and I wanna get that dark green, that dark navy, or dark hunter rather. If it's even more of a blackish kind of color, we're gonna use that to kind of hug our horizon line. So that same color that we were using back here for our tree horizon line, we're gonna come in and we're gonna put just a little bit of that darker color right along the edge, right along the edge. And these thin lines that I'm making going out towards the middle, they are just a very thin line. As I'm pulling my hand away from the canvas, I'm getting this nice thin line. And while I have that dark green, I could go in and I could add a couple swirly lines. What I mean by swirly lines is I'm doing like a small circle motion with my brush to add in some of those darker tones. We're adding all our dark tones in at once here. So adding in my darker tones, a little darker when I get over here to the corner. More of a shadow going here. Try to keep those lines all going in the same direction. A little dark coming into your flowers. And bring those darks all the way into the rest and right along that shoreline, right? So little small circles and right along the shoreline with our dark hunter green. We're going right, even where the pink is, remember the little space that we left? We're going in and we're making a little shadow line there. And with our green, now this might be scary, but don't be scared. We're going to go in and we're going to make our tree reflections. So remember how we made our line and then we went back and forth and made our squiggles? We're going to be doing the same thing, except we're not making the line going down the middle. So our tallest tree is going to be our longest reflection. It's not going to go all the way to the bottom of the canvas, but it's going to go about halfway down from what I have left here. I'm going to start with my line here, and then I'm going to go up like this. And it's a very loose line at first, and then I could go in and fill that in a little bit. If I need to add a little bit of water to make it a little bit thinner so it's not as opaque, it's a little bit more transparent. Go back and forth, and making your tree line. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Now remember, this tree next to our big tree, it's smaller, so we're not gonna start as low. It's gonna be a little bit closer to that edge of our island. And the same thing over here. Bring that across. Now, if you haven't added in your darker shadow line on the right side, we're going to go in and do that. All right, I'm going to go in and put that darker shadow line right on the edge here. It's okay if you get a little bit of pink blended in. Don't worry about it. Those shadows will all work together rather nicely. We are going to see a little bit of these trees that we had up here. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to do a little back and forth here and a little back and forth right here. My black or my dark green is going to kind of fade away into this. Adding in some of those darkers right in there. And once we're done with those shadow lines, I'm gonna rinse my small brush. And I'm gonna go in with my yellow and white. Now that mixture is probably long dried by now, so make sure we're using white as our base and a little bit of yellow. And with the very top of our small brush, and I'm using my pinky to kind of hold my hand steady, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna make some nice light, very light, thin lines that are going to go across my water. And they're going to go over those shadows, showing that the light is getting picked up on the top of the water. That's why I have that light white line going through my shadow line here to show my reflections of the sky. Could do a couple back and forth. Whoa, drop my brush. I don't want to press very heavy with my brush. I want to press nice and light. So I'm just going to do a very light, just right on the tip, and get in some of those lines. Now, if you made a line like, oh gosh, that line looks like it's too thick and it's too dark, add some water to your brush, wipe off the extra water, and just blend that out so it's a little bit more transparent. And get your reflections in. All right, how's everybody doing with that? I know that we're almost at 9 o'clock. I just want to respect everybody's time and make sure that, I mean, I know we don't really have anywhere to go, but I just want to, in case somebody had like some kind of show that they're going to watch or something, I just want to make sure everybody's doing okay with timing. Because we just need to add in our clouds and then we're just about done. Any questions? All right, cool. So I guess everybody's doing great. Now, you might say, Jess, I love what I've done so much. I don't even want to add in any clouds. And that is totally fine. Maybe you just like the smoothness and you don't want to add any clouds. You don't have to add in clouds if you don't like. I'm going to show you a way of making these clouds. They're a little bit more like transparent kind of clouds. So we still see the beautiful colors of the sky coming through, but it doesn't distract us too much in the background. They're very soft clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white on my medium brush, and I'm not going to keep a lot of paint on there. And what I mean by that is I have some white on my brush. I'm going to wipe off the extra paint so it's just like it's barely covered with paint. And I'm going to come in over here. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to just do some like little bump kind of line. I'm going to move this a little closer in case you can't see. So I just went in with that little bump, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to make the bump a little different. maybe a little bit more higher on this side. And all I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna put any more paint on my brush, and in some small little circle directions, I'm gonna blend out that bottom line so it looks like my cloud is now fading into the sky. And I can do as many or as little of these clouds as I would like. So again, I'm just gonna show you right over here. I'm just going in and I'm doing like my cloud outline. I don't want to add any more paint to my brush. And I'm going to do soft, small circles that are going to blend that white all the way down into the rest of my sky. So you can see I kind of layered mine a little different up on the top here. I'm doing a little different down here. Clouds are different every day, so make them different every time. So add a little bit of that white. You know, just going around my tree, bringing the white down. I'm gonna do a little bit over here on the side where I had that purple to break up that purple a little bit more. So I'm just doing a little white, like just a little white cloud, like typical cloud line, like a little bumpy bump. And then I'm doing soft circles as I get to the tree. I don't want it to go over the tree because the sky is behind the tree. I'm just gonna get it right up to there. And it's just giving me this light impression of a cloud. Same over here, just do a little womp, 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 womp. Doesn't even have to be that much paint. Make some clouds nice and soft. Just have them blend in with the rest of your sky. Now, as you're looking at it, you step back. If you notice that you would like to make some darker areas or some lighter areas, like you could go in with some purple and add some purple into these pink bushes if you want. If you think your pink looks like it is too much one color and you need to break that color up a little bit, you could add in some purple. You could even add in some red. I just wouldn't go, I wouldn't go too much the same colors in the background here. You want it to be differentiated there. So you could go in and add in any other small details that you'd like. Anybody want to show me what you're working with? I'm going to put my gallery view on in case anybody wants to show me what they're working with, because I'd love to see it.
All right, Jess, I'm going to show you. I'm not a big fan of my clouds, but I'll show you.
Okay. Why aren't you a big fan of your clouds?
I don't know. They don't really look like clouds.
Hold on, I can't see. That's too light and the bright. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I think what you should do is you should add, like, where you have your yellow and orange, I think you should add like another one of those clouds, like kind of crossing that line. So it's crossing that border, so it kind of brings it together a little bit more.
Go down into the yellow?
Yeah, like bring the cloud that's in the orange down into the yellow so it crosses the yellow line.
Okay.
They're always nice reflections.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Livy left.
Livy left. Did she finish or give up?
She did, but she was getting frustrated. That was her finish.
Oh, that looks really nice.
Yeah, she got frustrated with the trees.
Oh.
She jumped out, and I want to add purple.
Ooh, nice.
I don't know.
Nice job.
I found the
Meredith, what do you got going on? Ooh, awesome.
Nice.
Nice job. Nice
And
angles.
Meredith, thanks
Good
for all the
perspective.
information you gave me, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. I'll follow up tomorrow.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Mary Beth. Ooh, nice.
I can't see
Nice
it.
job with your mountains. Nice job with putting in all those different variations.
Wait, leave it up, Mary Beth, because I didn't get to see. Oh yeah, nice. I like your orangey pink at the top.
Thank you.
All right, friends. Well, I think everybody did a great job tonight. I hope you had a nice job doing this Zenful Mountain-scape. Zen. And I know in the email I asked if you guys would, I don't know how you feel, because we would have 3 lessons this week. And since when we first started this, we thought we'd be like getting back into action kind of next week. Would you want to push the next class so we have 2 classes next week? And then the next kit will come out after that?
Sure.
You know, if that sounds good, I'm just going to send an email to everybody confirming that we're going to move that date. And then I'll see you guys on Tuesday for the Buddha lotus painting.
Yay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jess.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Jess.
Bye,
Nice
everyone.
job. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, Patty.
Thanks, Gil.
I don't know how to shut off. Bye, Mary Beth. Bye, Jess. Oh, boy. Call Jeannie.
Calling Jean Diorio.